What is up, guys? ISmileyzI here once again, bringing you another episode of my Layton Brothers Mystery Room walkthrough. We're on case 6 now, 4-star difficulty this time, so let's get right on into it. This case is probably my favorite out of every case. I don't know what it is, I just kinda like it. Okay, so it seems like the commissioner is giving us this case, which must mean that it's extra important. A very worrying case. Although I'm not worried, this is the mystery room after all. 4 members of the Mafia have been found dead, oh my. 4? Yep. Oh. It's her what? Nope, never mind. Alright, well, apparently to Effendi it must mean something. So it's time to... Oh, not yet. We have a little scene between Lucy and the Commissioner here. Okay, so he's telling us to keep an eye on Professor Layton. Or not the... He's not Professor Layton, I keep calling him that. The Prof. Prof Layton. Because something might happen. Alright, so apparently this place is just, what's the word? Filled with violent crime. Oh, dead bodies. This is usually where the suspects are. That's kind of weird. I thought there were 4 of them dead. There's only 3 there. Prof didn't quite manage to hide his emotions. Ooh. His eyes had settled on something very puzzling. Interesting. Well, it's time for the formal introduction to file case number 6. Kiss goodbye. After all this time, what, Prof? Okay, alright, never mind. You're gonna hear those words a lot. Copycat crime, that's interesting. Alright, so let's, what do we know? What do we know about this case? Crime scene's a warehouse, yes, we've already gone over that. Owned by the Agionis, so the Mafia. Okay, they were found just before dawn. I was using it as a hideout. Haha, yes. The head of the family, Severino Agioni, which is has special significance to me because, as some of you may know, my name is Sev, S-E-V. It's a nickname, and it actually stands for Severin. So when I saw that, I thought that was really cool that his name was Severino. Unfortunately, he was kind of dead, but yeah, still kind of cool in my eyes. And I am part Italian, so that's also kind of interesting. No suspects? What kind of case is this? You have to have suspects. Okay, so apparently it couldn't have been the people who found them. I think this is the first time you hear this track in the whole game, if I'm not mistaken. It's kind of an interesting tune. Kind of fits the mood, I suppose. Okay, so it seems that they have an airtight alibi. They were in Africa. Okay, so they're out of the question. Yeah, surely there has to be somebody connected with the case. I mean, somebody must have killed them. One other person, but we can't find him, of course. Of course. A kick in the ribs indeed, Lucy. A kick in the ribs indeed. Yep, so this is a rather unique case in the fact that we don't have any suspects, and we have to investigate without having any idea who could have committed the crime. So in this case, there is no guessing who did it at the beginning because of that, because we have no suspects to guess. So, yeah, no guessing at the beginning. You just go straight to the crime scene. Murder inside a locked room. Very interesting. So apparently the door was locked from the inside, and they were all dead. Classic locked room murder case. So, a few mysteries to solve in this case. You know, being the fact that there's the locked room and no one else has been located that's related to the crime at all. So we just have 4 dead bodies, a crime scene, and a locked room. Well, I guess locked room is the crime scene. Okay, so He's telling us about the Jigsaw puzzle killings, which are very important from this point on, so remember those. Some guy killed 26 people and left a puzzle piece at the scene of the crime on every murder, but apparently it was withheld from the public, which, if you think about it, it does make sense. Well, I guess you don't really know yet, but... Okay, so we're about to go to the crime scene. And apparently the murders are all based on one of the Jigsaw puzzle killings. In common thread, yes. Forebodium? Is it foreboding? So he kind of alludes to forebodium there, although Lucy doesn't really make any comments on it. Kind of a bit of foreshadowing, maybe. Alright, so as he's reiterating now, we can't guess who the culprit is. Apparently Lucy likes that, unfortunately. There will be naught of that in this case. Okay. What? No, let's get stuck in? I like that better than let's crack on. Come on. Okay, so it is likely that the men were killed by someone who then fled the scene, which would make a lot of sense considering that we have no one as suspects right now. The only thing we can really do now is investigate the scene and gather some information. Alright, so time to start investigating. So by searching the using the locked room deduction, it's basically like your preliminary investigation of the crime scene, although there will be some stoppage points for dialogue here and there. I start over here where the corpse of Cecina, the boss's right-hand man, was. We got the puzzle piece, although this one's crushed in his hand, oddly enough. Plastic box saying Dale Hurl's Deli on it. So we have some takeaway food here. But you know, if there is takeaway food, there's got to be a delivery boy. Or a delivery girl, I suppose. Of course. Yeah, why haven't we got a statement from him? Oh, of course, we can't find... okay, so yeah, he's the guy that the prof was alluding to earlier, the only other possible person that was involved with the case. So, yeah, unfortunately, we can't talk to him right now. And, yeah, so he's kind of a mystery at this point. They do kind of have a habit of turning up dead. Hopefully, he is not dead, so we could talk to him. Or her, I suppose. Okay, so the missing witness is added to the deductions screen there. And I'm going to resume my examination of this part of the crime scene. We have the receipt for the goods and some beads. Now, these beads are very interesting. They don't seem to fit in at all in this crime scene. We'll get to the importance of these later on in the case. Yeah, so Lucy's saying they must have been from a necklace because they're pearls with holes in them, of course. Makes perfect sense. Then we have the knife, which apparently was laced with poison. Sticking out of his back over there. Right, now we're just going to go ahead and examine the very middle one, where the table is. Here I go ahead and examine all the evidence that does not provoke dialogue first, which is everything but the cups. Just have some irrelevant things like the ashtray, their lunch, the wine, which actually is important because it was laced with soporific. If you guys don't know what soporific is, it causes you to go to sleep or get very drowsy. But as you examine the paper cups, Alfendi will comment on the soporific, and it will be added to the deduction screen. Now at this point, I'm fairly sure you could just exit this scene, like the locked room deduction, and move on. But I decide to just go ahead and examine everything else, just for fun. We have the guy who has a television on his head. So he was strangled and then had a television thrown on his face. Alright, keep in mind these are copycat killings. Just all in one space here. Conveniently enough, there is stuff for everything there is stuff to imitate all these 4 murders in the warehouse. So we have boxes full of random stuff. And a door, which was locked. Hasn't been used, I guess is what it said. Next we have the refrigerator area, which just seems to be a normal refrigerator, but inside the refrigerator there is the corpse of Angelo Fassi, the young, handsome guy, I guess. Okay, so yeah, Lucy, you probably should start reading up on the case notes first. You wouldn't be surprised by random bodies falling out of refrigerators. Okay, so we have Fosse here. And then we have the puzzle piece, which was on his head, I suppose. It was somewhere on his body because it fell out of the fridge. Next we have, I guess, the boss's room here with the boss's corpse, who has been burnt to a crisp. We have the door, which doesn't matter. We have the jerry can, which contains fuel for lighting a fire. We have the tail end of a rope, which is burnt, but around his neck, so he can figure out kind of what happened there. Then we have the lighter, which of course was used to light him on fire. Here we have the desk, which is kind of irrelevant. The safe and the window. Pretty much everything here is pretty irrelevant, but I like to go through everything because I'm a completionist. If I haven't examined everything, it's kind of hurts my OCD. Alright, so we have the bookcase. Oh, well, first we have the telephone. That's actually kind of important. And then we have the bookshelf, which is not important at all. I don't know what those pictures are. If you guys know what they are, then feel free to tell me. They just look like a couple girls to me. I think they were both girls. Alright, so now we get on with the actual sort of deduction examination things. First, we're going to start with the bodies. Fairly straightforward, of course. Just examine the 4 bodies. I like to examine them in the order of which the killings took place. For example, the killing that Cecina's murder was imitating was the very first of the Jigsaw puzzle killings, and then I like to do the second and the third and the fourth. I guess it's sort of like kind of a logical progression to go through those, but you don't have to go like that. So he'll tell you about the case that the murder was a copycat of. In this case, there was a woman who had been stabbed in the back by a poison knife. Now keep in mind that the Jigsaw puzzle piece was found on her back. If you notice, when we looked at this at the beginning, the Jigsaw piece was found crushed in his hand. That is very, very relevant. You will see later why that is so important, that inconsistency is there. Then we have Boyle's corpse, the strong man. Alright, so the case of Raymond Tube. Raymond Tube, is it like a... Raven Tube, I guess, is kind of like a... I don't know why it would be called that. Maybe it was like a place that kind of had a little tube with a bunch of houses surrounding it. So the guy was found ransacked in a ransacked place, and he was strangled and had a television threw on his face. But apparently there was no evidence pointing to whoever did the crime. Other than the Jigsaw puzzle piece, of course. That is the common link between all of the murders. So this was the second one. And they're still going on, huh? This could be very bad. Alright, so it's time to examine the third body. The body of Angelo Fassi, the blonde man over there that was in the fridge. Okay, so he was strangled as well. Stiffen abattoir murder. It does kind of sound a bit grim. Stiffen abattoir murder. Alrighty. Okay, so they found the body of a woman in one of the refrigerators. Very interesting. A frozen corpse? Silly Lucy. It's a refrigerator, not a freezer. Strangled and then moved into the fridge. This one's kind of uneventful, except for the fact that she was found in a fridge with the puzzle piece, as usual. It is kind of as if he were making it into a game with the puzzle. Alright, time to examine the fourth and final body, the body of the mob boss, Severino Adjoni, whose body was burned. St. Florian's torching, okay. So it was a hospital, and they found a charred corpse. The victim had been doused in petrol, or for your American folks, gasoline, while he was still alive, and he was lit on fire. Ugh. Yeah, burning to death is not a good way to go. Very, very bad way to go, because you're in a lot of pain. Yeah, pretty morbid, Lucy. Pretty morbid. Oh, and also get used to this creepy music because it pretty much plays throughout the whole of the whole of this investigation. Not terribly bad music, but I mean, the catchy jazz songs are a little better. But I don't mind this song. Kind of fits the little mood. The little mood. Okay. All right. So now we're talking about how the public did not know anything about it, and Lucy's kind of questioning that. Yeah, on the mild side. Oh my. So the killings had no pattern, and they became more brutal, which is the sign of a good serial killer. Unfortunately. Yeah, the only link was the Jigsaw puzzle piece. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. If news of such random killings had gotten out, then people could either disguise the killings as the Jigsaw puzzle murders, as Lucy will point out here, and they will also kind of induce a public panic, because since it was completely random, they could be next. I'm surprised she didn't mention that, actually. Oh, there's Nevermind again. One of the bodies particularly troubling. Well, they are all pretty troubling. They all are pretty troubling, but there is one that is kind of unique here. But one of the victims was murdered in a slightly different way than before. And you're looking at it right now. It is the body of Adjoni's corpse. Two things are different from this. One, the fact that he was burned after he was dead, because you can see that the cause of death was a broken neck. Secondly, he was not given soporific, so he was awake when he died. So that kind of induces the theory that maybe he killed everyone else and then killed himself, which we'll talk about here in a bit. Alright, so Lucy's saying that maybe they didn't want to start a fire, so they lit him on fire after he was dead? Okay, so Adjoni's body does not fit a pattern. Next, we're going to go ahead and investigate the soporific in the cups, because if you go to the locked room, you'll just go back to the investigation of the crime scene, where everything's already checked off. And the missing witness, you can't do anything about. So the only thing you do is a soporific. Just gotta examine the cups. I'm pretty sure that's actually it. Now, this dialogue is... I'm pretty sure it's the exact same dialogue you get at the beginning. Like the very initial time you examine that before this. So that's kind of weird. Now, this is where you point out that the Bob Boss Adjoni did not have any of the soporific, which is a bit suspicious. Yeah, why would he be the only one of the victims not to have had any? Kind of an interesting thing. The plot thickens. The plot thickens. Okay, so, case is starting to get very good. Alright, so... Adjoni's looking kind of suspicious here. Okay, so if you had to pick one of the four victims as being the culprit, who would you choose? Well, that's kind of an obvious choice, because just looking at this context right now and everything that we know, it's looking like Adjoni is the most suspicious person, like I've been saying before. So the culprit out of all the four would have been Adjoni. That's what you would deduce from what we found at the crime scenes thus far. Yes, yes indeed. A couple things that don't fit though, which we will be going over later. Don't really fit this. What evidence points to Adjoni being the culprit? That would be the paper cups, because he did not have any Soporific in his system. So Ajoni could have killed the rest and killed himself. Yeah. A big problem. What could this problem be? Ajoni's cause of death. I suppose that is kind of an issue. It was a broken neck that killed him, but it was only after he died that he was lit on fire. It's kind of annoying seeing the word petrol there because I'm an American. I'm used to seeing gasoline. Okay, so in order for him to have committed suicide like this, he would have had to set up some sort of device that would have allowed him to have his body be lit on fire after his neck snapped. It's kind of gruesome when you think about it, actually. Although all the 4 deaths were pretty gruesome. Alright, so murder or suicide? It's the only thing we can do at the moment. It is quite possible, indeed. But there are a few things that do not fit. One of them is the cause of death, of course. Okay, so Lucy is not, she thinks that the idea of him killing everyone is, or the idea of him committing suicide is a bit far-fetched, and I am one to agree with her. Alright, so find a clue about Ajoni's suicide. You have to examine the tail end of the rope at this point. It's just a bit sus. Just a bit sus. He could have used the rope to break his own neck, I suppose. If he had, well, we're about to point it out, but of course, he could have jumped off the desk after putting his neck into the rope. I suppose the desk is a little bit important for this reason, but... I've got it! Alright, so fix the rope to the ceiling while you're standing on the desk and then jumped off. Hey, you were portly, fellow. You were portly, fellow. Alright, so we're looking, yes. Yeah, well, if he had done that, he would have been dangling from the ceiling. So he must have used something to break the rope after he jumped. And also light him on fire, which the only thing that could have done that would have been the lighter, of course. Because lighters tend to cause flames. If it's not causing flames, you have a terrible lighter. Alright, so yes, it would have lit his body aflame as well as the rope. That's kind of a gruesome picture right there. Kind of a cool picture though, I'm not gonna lie. Although it is my namesake there, so yeah. Yeah, so it would have left his charred body and made him look like he was murdered. Like it does now. So Lucy's saying, alright, that explains it. Now we know why the room was locked, because Ajoni killed everybody, but... Alfendi kind of brings up a catch. If the theory's correct, there will have been evidence of scorching on the ceiling. And we're going to have forensics check that out to see if there is signs of scorching on the ceiling. Although I would think that would be visible just by the naked eye. I wouldn't think you'd have to use any sort of device for that.